Hello and welcome to WinMagic's Speed webinar in collaboration with Swimage on the topic of Rip and Replace Symantec Encryption. Today's webinar is a follow-up to our previous webinar on defeating encryption login, where our attendees requested us for this demo. I'm Melissa with WinMagic, and I will cover some logistics before we begin. We will be recording today's webinar, and this will be shared with you in our post-webinar email. The demo and presentation will run for about 20 minutes, followed by a Q&A session. We encourage you to leave your questions in the Q&A box. Once the webinar ends, a new window with a brief survey will open up asking you for your feedback about our webinar. Please take a moment of your time to fill this in. We will now begin this webinar by introducing our panelists and their roles for today. First up is Gary McCracken. Gary is a CISO and VP of Tech at WinMagic. He's an experienced leader in data communications and information security for over 30 years. Gary will recap the previous webinar for those of you who didn't attend our last webinar. Next is Kyle Harrelson. He's the founder and chief executive officer at Swimage. Kyle is a Windows migration and PC automation specialist for over 25 years of experience. He will walk us through the Swimage demo of transitioning the encryption in the fastest, most reliable, and most cost-effective method. Our third panelist for the day is Joshua Potter. He is a senior sales engineer and solutions architect at WinMagic. He will walk us through WinMagic's web console, basically showing our attendees how things look when you switch your encryption provider to SecureDoc. Now, passing this on to Gary.
Thank you, Melissa. So as Melissa said, for those of you that didn't attend the last seminar, I'm just going to recap what the situation and the complication may be of switching from a legacy encryption provider to SecureDoc. So there are a number of reasons why you might want to switch, or you might need to switch. Security and compliance is one of them. You may have auditors coming in saying you're not compliant to PCI DSS or whatever. They may say that you need pre-boot authentication. Some systems don't have pre-boot authentication. You may be vulnerable for breach, or you may have, even worse, you may have had a breach. Or maybe you no longer trust the product. Maybe your current supplier is no longer investing in moving their product forward. Or maybe it's expense. Maybe the maintenance fees of your current provider are getting out of hand. They've escalated the prices. The cost of support's getting up there. Or maybe they're getting out of this business and concentrating on different products and different. Or maybe it's manageability. You may have started out 5 years or 10 years ago, a whole bunch of Windows machines, but now you also have Mac, and like a lot of companies we're seeing, looking to add a significant amount of Linux to your portfolio. And your system perhaps only does Windows, or only Windows and Mac, but doesn't do Linux. And you don't want to have to run 3 different systems for 3 different platforms. So maybe you need multi-platform support. Or maybe the standard and the reporting that you need has risen significantly for your auditors or for compliance. For instance, if you have a lost or stolen computer, you'll have to be able to prove that you actually was encrypted, because you no longer have the computer to point to. So there are a number of different reasons, and maybe it's a combination of all of those that you really feel that you need to move on to a modern, well-managed system. So why not just do it? What's been keeping you from doing that? Well, up until now, there's been a number of different complications in just moving from potential complications anyway, from moving one system to the other. Risk. Depending on how you move from one encrypted system to SecureDoc, there's a potential of decrypting it and being in a situation where it's decrypted for a while. And when it's decrypted, especially if it's remote, it's vulnerable. You're vulnerable to a data breach, or maybe you're vulnerable to a data loss if the encryption process isn't smooth and there's some kind of operating system or some failure. Or maybe it's just the amount of resources it takes to organize a project like this. the number of support people or project management or technicians. Maybe you just don't have that. Or maybe the real complication is user experience. You can't afford to have your user be down for a couple of days while your team switches from one encryption system to the other. But that could actually be lost revenue depending on what those people were doing, if they're salespeople and selling. Or the time and expense. If you have remote workers, this is even more difficult thing in this day and age. And you just don't have the organizational resources to do it. So these are a number of different complications that have kept people in the past from switching to a modern solution like SecureDoc. And I'm going to turn it over to Kyle to tell us how he's addressed each one or every one of these. Kyle?
Okay, thanks, Gary.
I need to stop sharing.
All right, and I'll go ahead and take over and I'll share my screen. All right, so you did a really good job at explaining the problems of having bad encryption technology and how difficult and how challenging and cumbersome it is to get off of that. So what we've done is WinMagic and Swimage have joined forces, and we've produced a solution to really solve this problem. And I'll go through a couple of things we've done to fix this. First off, we've made a process that's fully automated. This is very important because you want a system that doesn't require a lot of tech touch time and that can run on its own and be very resilient. So no interaction is really required to do this. And you can get it executed in a number of different ways. Any type of remote execution is fine, SECM package, AD policy push, or any other remote execution. Or you could make it user initiated. So it's really, really easy to push out and start the execution process of it. It also has real-time reporting as part of this feature, so that as a management team, project team, you can actually watch all the PCs get migrated from one type of encryption to another real easily on a single portal. Next, we wanted to address the security issue, making sure that there, under no conditions, any files on the system are going to be left unsecure or unencrypted. So what we've done is we've produced a process in order to layer an additional multi-layer of encryption on top of all of your files before you remove that old encryption. This way, there's no point in time where any of these files remain insecure and unencrypted. During the process, we also lock the system so it can't be hijacked by either end users, or if it's a kiosk you're doing the migration, it is hard and it's locked all the way down so that you cannot get into the system or the file system whatsoever. We made a process that requires minimal expense. We wanted this to be easy, seamless, and not a lot of project required to make this execute. Minimizing the number of tech hours and support costs is important, and it also accelerates the conversion process. You can do a lot more machines at a time with fewer technicians. It makes the project faster, and you're going to have less expense overall. The other thing we wanted to make sure we addressed was user experience. The user experience is important. We didn't want users to be interrupted, taken off the table to do their business, their work for any period of time. So we wanted to make sure it had minimal interruptions. So we set it up so they can be done completely after hours, and if the user initiates themselves, they can pick the time they want to do it, so they could kick it off after hours. It'll be done before they need the PC in the following morning. All this can be done without touching the device, so once it starts, it's going to finish without interruption. Okay, finally is the minimized risk. We built into the process a lot of resiliency. It finds errors, it can resolve those errors, move forward, and if there's any problems, it can report that up through our reporting portal, and auto repair if necessary. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is jump into a quick demo. So I'll demonstrate how this looks for the user experience. So we start off here, we have a PC that's encrypted, and we're going to go and convert this encryption. So the first thing we do, this is user initiated, they would execute this and would start the process going immediately. The first thing it does is lock the system. Now this is a simulated demo. The reason I'm not going through a full demo, obviously, is we don't want to sit here for the full length of time it takes to decrypt and re-encrypt. So I'm going to speed it up a little bit. You'll see the steps it's going through. It applies the file protection, which that second layer of protection that goes down, so it's encrypting the files. Once that's done, it'll reboot, kick it off again, and then does a cleanup of the Symantec, which is on there now, and it's going to unencrypt and remove that. Once that's finished, it'll go through and install SecureDoc and encrypt the machine with SecureDoc. And then it does the final removal of the second layer of encryption, reboot, and it is finished. And in a matter of little time at all, it's got the encryption completely converted over. User continues once it's unlocked and works as normal. So that's the process of how it looks for the end user. Okay, so I'll go through real quickly on the 5 phases it went through. First is it locks the system. This is that lock you saw. Technicians can unlock it. If you have that passphrase, you can unlock it if necessary, but it's really there for security so it can't be interrupted. The second phase is where it hardens the data. This is that second layer of encryption that comes down. Third phase is it removes that legacy encryption. So any type of encryption you have on the system, as long as it can be uninstalled and decrypted, we can take care of that, and it will handle that encryption or decryption process for you. All reboots necessary, we'll take care of in between. If it requires several reboots, it can do that and pick up where it left off. Finally, phase 4 is the encrypt with SecureDoc, where it's going to go through and layer on the encryption. And then finally, phase 5 is where it finalizes, it removes that second layer of encryption, unlocks the system for the user. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the architecture. The execution of it is a silent package. It's very, very lightweight. It's about 5 meg in size. It can be pushed out through SCCM, Active Directory, remote execution, or self-service. Monitoring, we have a live dashboard that you can monitor steps along the way. It can be done cloud or on-premise, depending on your preference. You can have on-screen monitor, which is the progress bar as well as the phase and what it's doing. And we also have in the back end a lot of verbose logging to get very detailed information about what is happening in the process. Reporting-wise, you get the roll-up status report, and everything that happens every single phase through the process gets rolled up to a web console, a portal, and then you can have it auto-generate daily, weekly, and project-based reports that get sent out to whomever you desire to give you a status of successes, failures, and progress as it's moving along. And then talk a little bit about the infrastructure. It is lightweight to get it implemented. It is completely self-contained, so it's a simple package that gets pushed out to the clients. You can pre-stage it in advance so they can be executed by the end user when desired. It is completely customizable. So if you have very specific nuances in your environment you want to build into this workflow, we can do that for you. You can either have it cloud-based where you have no server infrastructure, we host that cloud for you, or you can have it on-prem where you have a single server install and it's what hosts that portal in the database. Okay, give you kind of an example of what that active deployment dashboard looks like. From the web portal, you'll log in, you'll see the encryption process for all the PCs that are happening, which phase they're in, when they started, last time they've checked in, and you get a progress bar exactly where they're at and what step and which location they're in. And also you have the reports. These are those roll-up reports that gets auto-generated from Swimage, and it produces these and sends it to a distribution list, whomever you please, and it gives you status on the monthly totals, how many have been completed. By location, you can customize this by anything you want, by PC type, by whatever. And then you also have the conversion time, so it tells you how long, on average, these machines have been going along. Okay. That concludes my portion, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Josh for his SecureDoc demonstration.
Thank you, Kyle. So what I'm going to be showing as soon as I share my screen, and I believe you guys should be able to see my screen now.
Yes.
All right, so what I'm going to show you is some of the key features at the WinMagic or SecureDoc pre-boot. And so with that, I'm going to show you, here is a it's a pre-recorded demo. I'm going to fast forward this just a little bit to save a little bit of time here. So what you're going to see right now on the screen, this is what we call as our pre-boot screen. The unique thing about this user account that's logging right now is that this user is an Active Directory user that has never logged into this device before. So what we do with our product and at our pre-boot is we talk directly to Active Directory. What does that gain you? Example, as you're going to see, we take the credentials, we pass them and use a single sign-on solution, and we will tie into the credential provider. They're not presented with the Windows login. We take that and go all the way into the Windows desktop. Again, we're able to do so because we have direct hooks directly to Active Directory right at our pre-boot logon. Of course, that's if it's on the internal network. And so as you can see, if you've ever logged into a device before, Windows device before, this is the greeting screen that Windows likes to greet you with when it's loading your profile for the first time. So you're able to gain that. This user has never logged in this device before, but leverage our pre-boot to authenticate to Active Directory again to go directly into the device. Again, this is a pre-recorded demo, but this is at real time. This is not fast forwarded at all. And so what I'm going to show after this reboot is an example of the end user, which happens several times, is an end user forgetting their password. So when this reboots, again, depending on your need or security needs, this unique device is actually set to show the pre-boot screen every time. When this device comes back up and the pre-boot screen is presented, about now, here we go. So again, entering in the same user account that was just set up on the device because it was a new user, you can do the SecureDoc challenge response. This is SecureDoc's own internal way. You're presented with a challenge text. I will show that later on in the live demo of the web console. But what I'm doing right now off screen is I'm mocking as and mimicking as the administrator. The end user called in, hey, I forgot my password. You don't have to change what you're doing now. You can use your current solution set in the Active Directory and actually generate a temp password. And most typical users, you're going to check that box for that end user to change their password at next login. So the end user is now putting in that temp password, logging in with that temp password, authenticating directly to Active Directory. And again, taking that credential provider and single signing them all the way in, but where it stops them is at the time when it wants to pass through the Windows login. And as you're going to see here in a second, it's going to stop them and halt and say, hey, password must be changed. You're going to click OK. I'm a little ahead of the video, obviously, here. So go ahead and click the OK button. Once you hit OK, the old password is automatically predefined for you. It's already populated. All you're going to need to do is obviously put in the new password that you're going to assign to your user account. Enter. Password has been changed. It's going to pass you in to the Windows desktop at this time. What we do is not only synchronize up with your Active Directory. If this is a local account, it's, you do the same thing. So we're able to tie into the Windows accounts as well with local accounts if you need to do so. What we also do is we notify the end user in the system tray notification balloons that are going to pop up in the lower right-hand corner is that, yes, the password has been synchronized, which means you will now use that new password when you reboot the device and be able to use it off network with that new password. And we do a communication with that to that server at the time. So that populates that password and we know in our database and stored is that new password that the end user just put in there. Seamless synchronization throughout the Windows. Now what I'm going to do is actually going to present the web console walkthrough and show you a little bit of how everything is managed and where you can generate some of the reports from. So now I'm going to switch over to my live demo of my web console. This is the interface that you'd be greeted with. Our web console is actually Active Directory authentication as well. So you can leverage your security groups as well as your individual users if you choose to. That can all be defined within the console. Logging on right now, you can see on the upper left-hand corner processing. So just be here just a second. And when you're first launched the console, as you can see, you're greeted with the users. So this is just this unique folder that I'm selecting. If you click on the view all subfolders here, you will then populate all of the users that have been synchronized across your domains and Active Directory into our console. We do this synchronization every 60 to 90 minutes. So we basically help you out so that way you're not doing double duty. You're not entering the credentials in Active Directory and then putting them in our console. It automatically does that seamlessly in the background for you guys. As you can see, we do support multiple domains. And with this example, I'll select my user here. When I click my user and select my user, you can actually go in here, you can view the devices that this user is associated with, and vice versa. If I wanted to select a device, I go in and I can actually see the users that are associated with this device. So this, again, this is just a quick brief overview of the console. And then again, you do have your devices here. You can choose to go to devices, view all subfolders. And with this, as you can see, as Gary mentioned, we do support a vast variety of OSs. As you can see, I have Windows devices, I have Linux device, and a MacBook. All of those centrally managed, one console, one solution, one pane of glass for all your encryption needs. Now to go down and show a little bit about the reporting, this is the dashboard that you're greeted with when you click on the reports. So as you can see up here in the top, you can see the encryption status, you can hover over the pie charts, and then over here by the versions that are installed, so you can manage your version if it's a rollout, if you're upgrading from an older version to a newer version, depending on limitation within a certain version, and then say Windows that's going to be released, future releases. And then also over here by the OSs. So you can actually generate reports by, hey, how many devices do I have out there? An example, if you want to click on the pie chart itself, are reports generated directly? Yes, they are. And as you can see, I selected Windows. It's going to populate the 3 devices that I have as Windows devices. And then you can actually download that report and then share it with whoever may need that report. Probably audit is going to be one person that would probably be requesting those reports. And as you can see, just in these drop downs, I just want to hover over these and just show you real quick. You're actually able to see devices out of date, any permanent auto boot solutions that you may have, several reports that can be generated within our web console version. Another thing I want to mention real quick is actually simplified recovery. As I mentioned earlier, and as I showed you on that demo that was previously recorded, there was a challenge response. That's WinMagic's or SecureDoc product way of in-house and our solution to get somebody in it for password recovery if they forgot their password. So I'm going to show you on the Windows side. I'm going to search for my user again. And what happens, it's going to pop up. And remember that text that popped up, and I only briefly showed you for a little bit, but it's a series of characters and numbers. What would happen is the end user would actually type, or the end user would mention of what those characters are. So relay that information over to the administrator. The administrator would actually type in that content and then it would click on get response. Obviously, this is not the correct one. It would generate a response and they would read that back into the end user, and it would literally take them all the way in to their desktop. A lot of times, if a user was off network, this would get them in past that because they forgot the password. Previously, you may have to walk into the local area, walk into the shop, plug in your device, and then talk to your administrator. Okay, now we can reset it. Now they're on the network, because before there's no way for you to get into Windows because you'd have to be on VPN in order to get that current update with Active Directory. And that's where we alleviate and basically help them with those issues to get you in. Less time down, more time for you to be able to do what you need to be doing, as in work, getting that completed for you. So now the other thing is that we do support, as you can see up here, recovery methods, OS recovery, RMCE, BitLocker. And then, so this here, so with the console, what's nice is that we can accommodate those needs for the people to log into the console. It's all role-based security, role-based access. So only give the users logging into the web console the rights they need. So if it was just a service desk, help desk, they don't need access to see all the users, the devices, the profiles, installation package. They only need to come in here to do the recovery or to get them into their device outside of their current solution that they have now, which is Active Directory. So you're able to go in here, and when they launch and they go to this website and they put in their username and password, it's just only going to bring up this window, and this is all they see. Example, if you can generate a role-based security with just reports, And so if it was a management or audit, you can tell them to go in, okay, here, you can go into the reports, and this is all they would see. All the other items would be hidden, and they wouldn't even see them because the only access, the only rights they had through role-based would be reports. So that is the conclusion of the live demo of the web console. At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Gary to see if there's any questions or answers that anybody may have.
Well, thanks, Josh. That was a good demo. And Kyle, too, thank you for that demo. We have about 5 minutes left. I'm not sure we're going to get all of the questions, but don't worry. If we don't get to all your questions, we'll get back to you individually. I think we probably have your contact or registration information. First question I have here is, which encryption providers can you rip and replace? I think that's for you, Kyle.
All the major players we can utilize and uninstall and decrypt with all the major ones. If there's ones that you have, there's a provider that we don't currently support, let us know and we can make sure we incorporate that as well.
Can you list me a few names, get a couple examples? You did Symantec today, right?
Symantec, we can do McAfee, and we've done Checkpoint. So
good, okay. But
yep.
None of them are, you say none of them are really a challenge?
No, no.
Okay. Good. Here's another question. Do you support multiple users that pre-boot? That's probably a good one for you, Josh.
Yeah, actually we do. We have current customers several customers that leverage, and as you can see, and and I presented with that live demo, or sorry, with the pre-recorded demo, but that was it was a current up and standing, so that was a real live environment at the time when I set that up. We do support multiple users that can be controlled. You can leverage our product as access control, so you can limit it or you can gain anybody that has an active account through Active Directory. So you're able to use it. So call centers, devices, however you want to manage it. If it's being controlled through a group policy, we don't override that. So Windows will still be in control. They may be able to get past our pre-boot, but Windows will lock them out, wouldn't allow them to get in if they did have a group policy or restricted access to that device.
Okay. Next one up here. Do you support multiple domains for pre-boot login? That's probably you again, Josh.
Yep, and as I briefly mentioned, we do support multi-domains. We see more companies as they are either splitting, actually acquiring other companies, and migration from one domain to, say, another domain. They're able to actually set up both domains and run simultaneously within our console and be able to leverage that. And we do support Azure AD, and along you can leverage your UPN, which a lot of people go in Office 365. So you're actually able to leverage your UPN login rights, which would be your email address, as well as your typical user ID as you saw me enter in.
Good, thank you. What else can Swimage do for customers of SecureDoc? Well, Kyle, that one's for you.
Okay, that's a great question. Swimage is an automated workflow engine that can actually re-image PCs and get PCs back fully operational in usually less than an hour. And it can do that with SecureDoc, encrypting the device all the way through. So we can re-image the PC, get applications back, get all your data, all your settings back without decrypting the drive during that process. So it's a quick, easy process for even remote users. They can re-image their own PCs when there's an issue or they get a PC replacement.
Thank you. Well, we're at 2:29, so I think we can get one or maybe two more questions in. Do you support self-help recovery? Josh?
Yes, actually we do. We do support, we have our own built-in solution. When you deploy out the package, the end user would answer a select set of questions that they choose. So we do have our built-in, but also what we have integrated in with our product is at the pre-boot, you can actually click, and where it's all challenge response, there'll be another one for identity management, and we can link to a web browser of if the current customer has a solution already for them to currently reset their own password or have their own solution for self-help recovery.
Okay, that's still 2:29. I'll do another one here. Do you support multiple types of encryption solutions for Windows?
Yes, we actually, so AES 256, everything's encryption, end-to-end communication all the way through. Hardware encryption, which is Opal technology, as well as we do manage and take over File Vault, as you saw, and then BitLocker encryption with the SecureDoc over top, so gains you that multi-user authentication instead of being stuck to just one user for authentication at the pre-boot.
Great. Kyle, Josh, thanks. I know we had a couple more queued up questions here, but we won't be able to get to them. And if we didn't get to your questions, we'll get back to you individually. I wanted to thank everybody for attending today and put a plug in for our next webinar on March 23rd, Managing Security and Risk in Small and Medium Enterprises. And as we close this webinar, thank you again for attending. There's going to be a survey about the webinar, and appreciate if you spend 10 seconds in answering that. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.